Welcome back to Rip's Garage. Today we're working on the Hilux again, and we're going to see if we can stop blow-by with a bit of Bon Ami. Now blow-by is caused by compression gases from the cylinders getting down into your sump and causing excessive pressure. And the problem this car had was that the turbo, that's the new one, old one's over here, the turbo had a problem anyway where it wasn't sealing properly, and you can see all this the shiny surface here. It was leaking oil out of its gaskets. The dump pipe was full of oil, and you can see here oil was coming out basically everywhere it could. There was just too much pressure for the oil drain to let it back into the sump. If I turn this upside down, you can see the oil drain there. The bigger hole is the drain, and the small hole is the feed. So there was that much pressure coming up from the crankcase that it wasn't letting the oil drip back down into the sump. And if you don't get your blow-by in check, it can actually blow your front seals, the rear main seals, all sorts of seals. So you really want to make sure you get that sorted out. Ideally, the best thing to do is to rebuild the engine, put a new hone on the cylinders, new rings. But seeing as that's a last resort sort of option, we're going to try this one little trick beforehand and see if it does anything. Now, this powder is a cleaning agent, so it is abrasive, and what it's supposed to do is clean up the glaze off the cylinder walls and help the rings to bed back in. Now, it's made of a chemical called feldspar and limestone. There you go, ingredients just there. And you've got some soda ash and baking soda. Soda ash is probably the most abrasive thing in there, although I'm not sure. You might want to get that checked out. Either way, it is a dangerous chemical, so be careful, and definitely only use this as a last resort. So in a minute, I'll turn the engine on, and I'll lift off the oil cap and show you how bad the blow-by is on this engine. Alright, so I've pulled the cap off. And this is just at idle, and you can see how bad that is. That's pretty bad, and that's stopping all the oil from draining back out of the turbo. And it's going to cause a lot of pressure to all the internal seals. Now, before you would do something like this, you want to check a few other things just to make sure that the blow-by problem is not caused by anything else. But as you saw in that video, that's a pretty extensive blow-by. But one thing you would want to check is you've got this PCV system coming off your rocker valve, sorry. You want to make sure that that's not blocked. So there's normally a baffle behind here. Pull the hose off, give it a suck and a blow through, make sure that air can come through there. Sometimes there is a one-way valve, but you should always be able to suck through it. Then you follow your hose. I happen to have a catch can installed, so make sure that your catch can's not blocked, that you can still pass air through these hoses. That's the inlet, that's the outlet. Follow the outlet up, see where that goes in. It'll be somewhere in your air intake. Make sure that nothing's blocked up to there. In my case, it's not. And that's about it. So really bad blow-by will cause your dipstick to push out. That's not happening in this case, but that dipstick is in there pretty tight. Now the procedure we're going to do today is I'll undo this hose clamp. We'll take the inlet to the intake manifold off, and I'm just going to get 16 mil of the powder, Bon Ami, and we're just slowly going to feed it in there. At about 1200 RPM or so, and then once that's done, it should burn straight through. We're going to take it for a drive, load it up, so probably put it in second or maybe third gear, it's an automatic, and go up a hill. Drive it around for maybe half an hour or so the rings can try and bed in again, and that should be it. And after that we need to do an oil change straight away, because we are introducing gritty particles into the combustion chamber so they can make their way down into the oil. We don't want them damaging the bearings. so obviously not the cleanest job in the world. You can see it's pretty hard to get all the powder in there, but I think the vast majority of it got in there. And ideally you would keep it running and then put it under load straight away, but for the purposes of this video, I just stopped it there to show you how tricky it can be. Now I'll just hook the inlet back up and we'll go take it for a drive. Now I've just come back from running it for about 15 minutes. Kept it in second gear, went up some hills, tried to give it as much load as I could. In retrospect, what I should have done was left the turbo off so that it didn't have as much compression in the cylinders. And one thing I did notice was that there was a fair bit of white smoke, well, you know, the powder that came out just as I took off. So it might have been a bit much powder that I put in. But I'll give you a link of the place where I got the instructions for. It's actually a Caterpillar manual from the 30s and 50s, 30s through to the 50s. They used these D7 and D8 heavy industrial engines, big diesel engines. They were non-turbo. They used to run up about 800 RPM max. And this is actually the break-in procedure for them. To use a powder very similar to this, and I'll give you the CAT part number. They still sell it. But yeah, so what I'll do is I'll run the engine again and show you how much blow-by there is, and we'll see if it's been reduced. There you go, Bonami as a break-in powder, perhaps not the way to go. We saw from my results that beforehand the blow-by was substantial, but the engine wasn't vibrating. I was getting a lot of blow-by. There's oil in the inlet, all through the turbo housings, but I wasn't getting oil spurting out of the rocker cover or pushing the dipstick out. And after I did the Bonami trick, you could see that the blow-by was much worse. The vibrations were terrible. There was oil spurting out of the rocker cover there. So yeah, maybe I did something wrong. Very possible. I'm not an expert. Might have put too much in, too little. Might not have run it in long enough to bed the rings afterwards. But this engine was destined to be rebuilt anyway, so we'll be doing that on an upcoming episode. Stay tuned for that. And definitely do your own research. This product, Bonami, it's not designed to be used on engines. It's a cleaning product, a very good one. Caterpillar make their own ring bedding powder, break-in powder they call it. A lot of forums out there, just do a Google search. People say you can use Bonami, Ajax some people use. Personally I wouldn't, because it's very different ingredients. But you know, people have had mixed results, and yours might differ as well. So this is purely educational, comedy value. Play with your own engine at your own risk. But in this particular case, it didn't work for me. So I'll catch you when we rebuild the engine. See you then.